Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Balancing Work and Cancer Strategies for Eating Well on the Job. All lines have been placed on a listen-only mode, and the floor will be open for questions and comments following the presentation. If you should require assistance throughout the conference, please press *0 on your telephone keypad to reach a live operator. At this time, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to your host, Nicole Jarvis. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kat, and hello, and thank you all for attending today. I'm Nicole Jarvis, Senior Manager of Programs at Cancer and Careers, and I'll be today's webinar host. Before we begin, a few items related to accreditation. Today's webinar is accredited for CEUs by ANCC, NASW, the New York State Education Department State Board for Social Work, the California Board of Registered Nursing, and the Society for Human Resources Management. If you plan on receiving continuing education for this program, please proceed with the following steps. First, you must call in individually. Participants who listen in on someone else's line will not receive credit. And second, you must complete and submit the evaluation and post-test, as well as receive a passing grade on the post-test. Following today's session, you'll receive an email with all of this information. The email will be sent by 5 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, and you will have 2 weeks to complete the post-test and the evaluation. Also, please note that the planners and presenters for this program have not disclosed any pertinent financial relationships or conflicts of interest, and that no commercial support was provided for this program. The lead sponsor for Balancing Work and Cancer webinar series is Genentech. In addition, Cancer and Careers year-round sponsors support all of CAC's core programs, including this one, and thanks to their support, we've created the Balancing Work and Cancer webinar series to provide patients, survivors, and healthcare professionals with concise, targeted information to help you all understand a variety of issues that surround balancing work and cancer. Now, as we can all likely agree, maintaining a healthy diet can be really challenging in general. For someone who's been diagnosed with cancer and is working, eating well can be even harder, depending on their schedule, work environment, and so forth. So to talk to us a little bit about this today, to offer some guidance on meal planning and preparation, how diet can help you manage side effects at work, and tips for managing weight and more, we're pleased to have with us Suzanne Gerdes-Fultz and Holly Mills. Suzanne is a clinical dietitian nutritionist who works at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where she counsels patients, families, and caregivers on how to maintain adequate nutrition during and after cancer treatment. Holly is a registered dietitian and a certified specialist in oncology nutrition. She works as an oncology dietitian at the John Theurer Cancer Center in Hackensack University, where she provides clinical care to patients undergoing chemotherapy, surgery, and bone marrow transplant. Following their presentation, we're hoping to have some time for you to ask questions, so feel free to type those into the Q&A box. But for now, I'll turn it over to Suzanne and Holly.
Thank you, Nicole. This is Holly, and I will start today's presentation just discussing some of the importance regarding nutrition during treatment. We know that during treatment, the way your body uses nutrients may change, causing your energy and your protein needs to increase. Eating well, and that means eating a varied diet that includes all of the major nutrients, protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals, can help in several ways. Eating well can help you keep up your strength and energy during treatment, maintain your weight and your body's store of nutrients, better tolerate treatment-related side effects, lower your risk of infection, as well as help you heal and recover faster. The importance of eating well post-treatment can also help in terms of regaining strength, rebuilding your tissue, and feeling better overall. So we wanted to start today with some nutrition basics. What consists of a well-balanced diet? What nutrients do we want to make sure that we have in our diet to make sure that all of our needs are being met during treatment? And we want to start with protein. Protein needs may be a little bit higher as one is going through treatment. If you're going through chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or post-surgery, your body may require a little bit of extra protein to help with healing and, again, to help fight infection. We need protein in our diet for growth, to repair tissue, and it also helps to keep our immune systems healthy. So what are some good sources of protein? We definitely want to choose lean protein, things like white meat, poultry without the skin, lean meat, fish, eggs, nuts and nut butters, legumes and tofu are great plant-based proteins. So we definitely want to make sure at mealtime that we are including these lean proteins in our meal to make sure the diet is balanced. Fat is also extremely important. We do need fat in our diet. It holds many important functions in the body. Fats help us furnish energy, produce hormones, and they also act as carriers for fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. We do want to stick to healthy fats, unsaturated fats like olive oil, canola oil, peanut oils, nut and nut butters, and avocado. These are great, to include in our diet. If one is losing weight, I would recommend maybe even adding extra healthy fat to your meals if you need some extra calories, but we definitely want to make sure it's part of a balanced meal plan. And lastly, we want to also include carbohydrates. Often I hear from patients that they're restricting carbohydrates, they're nervous to include carbohydrates for many reasons, weight management or blood sugar control, but they are part of our diet and they should be part of a well-balanced meal. They do provide our bodies with energy. It's the type of carbohydrates we want to be conscious of. So if you can tolerate whole grains when you're choosing your carbohydrates, things like whole wheat bread, whole grain pasta, brown rice, oatmeal, quinoa, these are great. They are high fiber, nutrient-dense carbohydrates that we want to have throughout the day with our meals. If you're unable to tolerate these high-fiber whole grains during treatment, I recommend speaking with a dietitian who can help you work out a meal plan with some lower fiber carbohydrates if needed. But as long as your body can tolerate them, I would definitely include them as part of your meal. Fluids are extremely important. They're essential to all of our needs. They're vital for our health. All body cells need water to function, and when you're going through treatment, in order to ensure adequate hydration, you want to aim for typically 8 to 10 cups of liquid daily. This is individual, however. If you are going through treatment and you've been advised to restrict fluid or to have more fluid, you always go by the advice of your healthcare provider, but the general guideline is typically about 8 to 10 cups of fluid daily. If we don't drink enough fluids or if we lose fluids through vomiting or diarrhea, it's easy to become dehydrated. So I did want to share with you today some tips to help you stay hydrated. First, we don't want to wait until we're thirsty to start drinking. We want to, stay ahead of that. So sip fluids throughout the day. If you're at work and you have a water bottle on your desk, that's a great reminder to just keep sipping throughout the day. Not everyone likes the taste of plain water, so often with my patients, I'll recommend to add a flavor like natural lime or lemon, even infusing water with mint or fresh fruit like watermelon or cucumber is quite refreshing. This is a way to, again, flavor your water and, kind of spark a little bit more interest in drinking if you have something like a nice mint leaf in there. Eating foods with high water content can be helpful as well. Fruits like melons, strawberries, peaches, and also other vegetables, tomatoes, cabbage, broccoli. These are fruits and vegetables with high water content that you want to add throughout the day that can help with your hydration status overall. It is also helpful to keep track of your fluid intake, so you may want to write down how many cups of fluid you're drinking per day. This way, when you come in and you meet with your healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, dietitians, you can share with them about how much you're drinking per day, and we can tweak as needed if you're not getting in enough. If there's any losses through diarrhea, losses of fluid through vomiting, you may want to include electrolyte-enhanced formulas. You want to replace those electrolytes as needed. So, some of them are common brands out there that people are familiar with are products like Gatorade or G2, which is Gatorade with less added sugar. But there's also Pedialyte for children, comes unflavored. That's an option. Or even things like coconut water, which is high in potassium. So there's other ways to replace those electrolytes through formulas or through foods as well. So I would recommend speaking to a dietitian if you're experiencing symptoms where you're losing, again, fluid. Vitamins and minerals are vital to our health, and they're key and part of a well-balanced diet. Fruits and vegetables are excellent sources of vitamins and minerals. To ensure adequate intake of these nutrients, what you want to do is try to eat the rainbow. Eat a variety of fruits and vegetables daily. As you see in the image, we have many different colors. If we eat from all the different colors throughout the day, that's a great way to ensure we're getting all of the vitamin and minerals that we need through diet, which is the best way to get them. If you're going through treatment and you have difficulty tolerating raw fruits and vegetables, you may want to try cooked. They're often better tolerated if you're experiencing any gastrointestinal side effects like diarrhea or nausea. Definitely talk to a dietitian, see what fruits and vegetables are best for you at that time, and how you can still incorporate them even if you're having some of those symptoms. We want to focus on getting our vitamin and minerals and our nutrient needs from food. Often I meet with patients and they want to know about additional vitamin mineral supplementation when they're going through treatment. And actually taking large doses of vitamins and minerals during treatment is not recommended and may even have a negative effect on your treatment. Sometimes it's contraindicated to take certain vitamins or herbal products when you're going through treatment. So it's actually best to try to consume antioxidants naturally in the foods you eat and avoid the concentrated supplement source. Something like a daily multivitamin, or maybe even for some folks if they're taking calcium or vitamin D and they've had the discussion with their healthcare team, it's fine to continue. The important thing to do is you want to have this discussion with your team, your doctors, nurses, dietitian. If you're taking vitamins and minerals, let them know what you're taking. You definitely want them to approve what you're taking while you're going through treatment. You don't want to take anything on your own without having that discussion with the team. Managing symptoms at work. So the other important part of nutrition during treatment is how can you manage your symptoms. Oftentimes you'll go through treatment and there's definitely medication management that you discuss with your team, but until you meet with a dietitian, you may not know about some of the things you can do in terms of dietary change that you can make, which will help manage some side effects. So cancer treatment can cause side effects that affect how well you can eat, how well you can drink, and we do have a few tips today that can help you manage some of these side effects, especially while you're at work. So with nausea, often changing meal pattern is key. We are sometimes used to having 3 large meals throughout the day, and typically if you're experiencing nausea, smaller, more frequent meals works best. So instead of eating the 3 large meals, we may want to try eating 5 or 6 small meals throughout the day. Also, when you're eating, you may have times of day that you feel better. So if morning is a good time for you and that's a time when your appetite is quite good, you may want to have a larger meal in the morning and try the small frequent meal pattern later throughout the day. Eating drier foods with fluids in between can help. So dry starchy foods, saltier foods like crackers, pretzels, dry cereal, these are foods you may want to keep on hand with you, especially at work. Keep them in your desk drawer. Just kind of nibbling on those types of foods can actually help to calm the nausea. Avoiding fatty or overly sweet foods is recommended as well. You want to think bland meals. That's why, like a soup, chicken noodle soup, chicken rice soup, these bland, dry foods, as I mentioned earlier, they tend to work best. And if you're on an anti-nausea medication during treatment that's working, that's fine, great, continue. If you're on medication and you find that it is not working for you, have a conversation with your healthcare team. Your doctors and nurses can always try a different medication. Stay in contact with the team. Let them know how effective your treatment is working, as well as your medications for side effects. Additionally, taste change may be an issue as you're going through treatment. You may find that the foods you loved your whole life may taste a little bit different, just a little off, or overall have a bad taste. So a few tips that I often share with patients as they're going through treatment: foods may often taste better if they're served cold or room temperature. Red meat can be an issue for some folks during treatment, so alternative protein sources may be chicken, turkey, fish, tofu, beans, or eggs. You can have these foods any time of the day if red meat isn't working for you. Adding small amounts of something sweet like a honey or maple syrup to some foods can also help decrease salty or bitter taste. So often marinating something like a chicken breast in a sweeter marinade, or adding some cranberry with your turkey can actually help the off taste. So being a little creative in meal prep can be helpful. Definitely meeting with a dietitian during this time, because we actually can offer many changes, many tips to help with taste change, including trying tart foods. So tart foods such as lemonade or lemon yogurt, they can often mask bitter taste. So as long as you don't have any mouth sores or any mouth irritation, trying tart foods can sometimes be helpful. Simply changing to plastic utensils can often help folks instead of using regular flatware. If you try plastic utensils, that can often help in the management of bitter or metallic taste change. And good oral hygiene is key. Nursing staff often talks to you about rinsing often throughout the day. If you met with a dietitian, we often usually encourage this as well. Try rinsing before and after meals, not just at the end of the day, but if you rinse before and after meals with a non-alcoholic mouth rinse, that can often help when you actually sit down to have your meal in terms of taste change. So bring a travel-sized bottle of mouth rinse to work with you so you can really keep this habit going throughout the day. Dry mouth is another side effect that often happens. It's typically due to medication. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you're staying well hydrated. So as I've mentioned earlier, at least 8 to 10 cups of fluid a day is recommended. You may want to sip water or other beverages through a straw throughout the day. That can certainly help. Avoid salty foods because that can sometimes dry us out. So you want to limit that if you're really suffering from severe dry mouth. If your mouth is not sore, again, you can try those tart foods like the lemon or the lemonade that I mentioned earlier. So sprinkling some lemon on fish or lemon-flavored yogurt, lemon drops, this may actually help your mouth produce some more saliva. You want to also choose foods that are moistened with broth or gravy or sauce. So think of chicken. If a chicken, is dried out, if you've cooked it long enough and it's pretty dry, that is not going to be palatable, especially in the presence of dry mouth. So choosing a broth, a gravy, a sauce or stew, salad dressing can really help. Avoid alcohol, and this includes commercial mouth rinses that contain alcohol. Definitely look for a non-alcoholic mouth rinse. And if the dry mouth is severe, speak with your healthcare team about products that coat and protect the mouth. There are a variety of saliva substitutes, mouth moisturizers, and even saliva stimulants that can be prescribed to help with this symptom. Mouth or throat pain or sores. So sometimes as you're going through treatment, you may get mouth sores or some just throat or mouth pain. So there are some food choices you want to focus on if you're experiencing these symptoms. At this time, you definitely want to choose softer foods, smooth and moist foods. So some examples include applesauce or canned fruit, pureed mashed vegetables, oatmeal or cooked cereal, cottage cheese, scrambled eggs, ground meats within a sauce, maybe puddings. You want to avoid foods like citrus fruit, spicy or salty foods, pickled foods, tomato-based products, rough, coarse, or dry foods, because this will actually irritate the mouth if you are experiencing this symptom. Fatigue is often a symptom I hear about most frequently, I think, for my patients going through different phases of treatment. During treatment and even post-treatment, fatigue may linger. So fatigue is often made worse if you're not eating well or drinking well. We want to make sure that your diet is balanced at this time. So you want to choose high-calorie, high-protein foods, stay hydrated with at least 8 to 10 cups of fluid daily, and even think about healthy snacks, because if your meal pattern has changed, if you're eating less during treatment, you may need snacks in between to keep your energy level going. So keeping healthy snacks on hand at work, like dried fruit, nuts, maybe whole grain crackers and a nut butter like peanut or almond butter. These are nice, well-balanced snacks that have protein. They contain some carbohydrates, so they can help you sustain your energy a little bit longer throughout the day. And engaging in physical activity can be very helpful. Actually, movement can help you naturally increase your energy level. So you want to talk to your doctors or nurses about what type of activity is best for you, if it's okay to, join a class, or if walking is the best exercise at the time of the time frame you're in regards to treatment, but you want to stay active. Research actually shows that some physical activity can improve your daily functioning, boost your energy level overall, stimulate your appetite, and enhance mood. If you're feeling fatigued, meal preparation can also be an issue during treatment, so you may want to consider asking friends or family to help prepare meals. There are frozen entrees out there, prepared meals through meal delivery services, or if you have days of the week where you feel better, you may actually want to prepare extra portions, freeze them, put them away, and then have them on the days where the energy level is low. We do have a lot of options in terms of meal delivery services now and meal kits. So just a few services out there. There are services like Fresh Direct or Peapod. These are online groceries where you can purchase all your groceries and have them delivered to your home, or they also usually offer already prepared meal options, and the meals are typically well balanced, so you can actually get a piece of fish with a grain like rice or quinoa with a nice cooked vegetable. And on Fresh Direct, I know that they do include the nutrition facts for all of their prepared meals, so you can find out the calories, the salt, the fat, the fiber in the meal, so that you can be aware of the nutrition content of that meal. But they can be very helpful if energy level is low, it's difficult to go out grocery shopping. The online grocery option is a really good choice. There are also meal kit delivery services like Blue Apron, HelloFresh. So if you do have the energy to cook, this does help in terms of having everything for that meal delivered to you in a box. All ingredients are in that box. A recipe is included, so you have everything you need to make a nice fresh meal. And lastly, if you don't have the energy to cook for yourself and you have friends and family who are offering to help, they now offer these great apps. They're actually interactive online calendars where people can get together and they can organize your meal giving. So if you have several friends who would like to make a meal for you, they can get together and they can decide which day of the week that they are going to cook for you, what they're going to make, and they can share that through the app, through Meal Train, or take them a meal. These are great options. Weight management. So in addition to symptom management, we also wanted to spend a little time focusing on weight management, which can be an issue during treatment. Oftentimes we see weight loss, but there can also be weight gain depending on the treatment that you're on and your regimen. So weight loss, which is commonly the most common symptom we hear sometimes from patients as they're actively in treatment. We do have some tips if you're going through some unintentional weight loss. So you may want to try changing the meal pattern, eating small amounts of food more frequently, because weight loss is typically accompanied by decreased appetite and decreased desire, which is decreased desire to eat. So if you don't have the desire to eat, but you need to stay nourished, eating small meals throughout the day is the best way to accomplish that. So I would say every 2 to 3 hours, try to eat a small meal, and a small meal that is well balanced. So a small meal may include some carbohydrate, protein, and a little bit of fat. So we can take a half of a nut butter sandwich. So a slice of whole grain bread with an almond butter or a peanut butter includes all of the major nutrients. It includes carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, as well as a little bit of fat. And a small meal like that can hold you over till you eat again in 2 hours. We do want the small meals to be nutrient dense, because if you're relying on those small meals to meet your needs, we don't want you to focus on low calorie options. So if your small meals consist of crackers and light and lively yogurts, you're not going to get all of your needs met. So try to focus on nutrient dense meals that include carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. You also want to schedule meal times, because if lack of appetite is an issue, you may not be getting a hunger cue. So what you want to do is follow the clock. If you start your day at 9 a.m. with breakfast, then by the time we're reaching 11 a.m., it is time to eat another small meal. So I would say 2 to 3 hour window is a good window to follow, and try to continue that throughout the day if you are losing weight and need to focus on optimizing your nutrition. Eat more when you're hungry. I mentioned this earlier. If you have times of day where the appetite is increased, such as the morning hours, or maybe for you it's afternoon or evening, maximize that time. You may want to eat a larger meal when the appetite is stimulated. Limit fluids during the meals. Often if we drink a large glass of fluid with our meal, we may get full on the fluid. So instead of drinking an 8-ounce cup of water with the meal, you can sip during mealtime and try to limit the fluids. Drink before the meal or after the meal, and minimally during mealtime. Keep snacks handy. As I mentioned earlier, they can help with energy level. They can also help to make sure that you meet your calorie and protein needs. So keeping those nutrient-dense snacks on hand to have in between meals is a great idea. And then there's also nutrition supplement drinks. If you cannot get your calorie and protein needs met through the food you're eating solely, you may want to focus on liquid options. So there are over-the-counter products out there. Orgain, Ensure is one that most people are familiar with. But if you don't like the over-the-counter products that are available, you can also make your own. So often in my center, we give out recipes for creating high-calorie, high-protein shakes. You start with a liquid base. This may be milk, almond milk, soy milk, and then you can add protein to that, maybe through nut butter or through Greek yogurt. Add your favorite fruit, and then add flavorings like vanilla or cinnamon, and you can make your own version of an Ensure or an Orgain, as long as you have the time to do it. But we recommend that if you're not eating well, you really try some liquid calories, because that can really help to supplement your intake. Weight gain is also an issue that occurs during treatment. Often, certain regimens may include steroids, and steroids can often increase appetite, and that can result in increased weight gain. So, if this is an issue that you're facing, the first thing that you want to focus on is watching your portions, especially your portion of higher calorie foods. Sometimes it's not what we eat, but how much we eat, because even healthy foods can be calorically dense. You also want to really start to become a label reader. If you're eating packaged goods, cereals, breads, anything coming from a box or a package, take a look at the nutrition facts label. You want to be conscious of calories. You want to look at the fat content. It may have 13 grams of fat, but is it all saturated fat? How much is unsaturated? So take a look at the nutrition facts label. Other things on there include sodium that's important to review as well, and fiber. Sometimes we're looking to get more fiber in the diet, so it's good to definitely review that nutrition facts label. When you're choosing your protein, try to choose leaner proteins like fish, chicken, white meat turkey instead of beef, which is higher in saturated fat, higher in calories. We definitely want to limit red meat at this time, and limit intake of refined carbohydrates. So foods like pastries, candy, sugar-sweetened beverages, sugar-sweetened breakfast cereals. We want to limit that. We don't want to focus on refined carbohydrates when we're trying to maintain or lose weight. Increasing your intake of fruits and vegetables can be extremely helpful as well when you're trying to watch weight. Fruits and vegetables are naturally low in calories and fat, so if you're hungry, going back for a second serving of vegetables is definitely the way to go. Limit intake of high-calorie snacks between meals. So I talked about snacking before, but what you want to do is maintain portion control. So while something like half a nut butter sandwich, that's a perfect snack. It's not overly, it's not calorically it's calorically dense, but in the right portion, it can fit into a meal plan. If you're having a handful of nuts, that's a perfect portion as well. We want to be mindful of the portions we have, so we don't want to have several nut butter sandwiches or eat nuts out of the bag, the large Costco bag, as we're watching TV, because that's when we can overdo it in calories. So just be mindful of portion. Avoid intake of sugar-sweetened beverages, as I mentioned earlier. When you're cooking, try to choose lower fat cooking methods. Broiling or steaming, avoid frying foods as much as possible, and try to engage in some type of physical activity. Walking is an easy way to get started. If you're new to physical activity, you definitely want to speak with your healthcare team, your doctors or the nurses that work with your doctors. If you're new to exercise, make sure that it's okay for you to exercise and get some clearance from them in regards to the best activity for you. It's also good to include activities that may help manage stress. Often we don't eat out of hunger. We may eat out of boredom or stress. So we want to manage stress as best as possible, and we want to look for other activities besides eating high-calorie foods. So including, a walk may help you manage that stress, or a dance class, but find something that can help. And next I will hand it over to Suzanne. She's going to discuss some strategies for healthy eating.
All right. Thank you, Holly. So there are many challenges to eating at work. Limited time. You don't have anywhere to prepare meals. You may not have places to refrigerate your foods, or you just might have a lack of options. You may not have restaurants or places close by, or a cafeteria in your place of work that you can go and purchase food. It's stressful, especially this time of the year when people are trying to close up the fiscal year. It can be very stressful. Unreliable storage, and then also peer pressure of what your coworkers are eating, what snacks are in the break room, and people are trying to push on you. And then put on top of that the effects of cancer and treatment, when you may have restricted diets, whether it's because you're having particular symptoms or because of your particular treatment. Your appetite might be like a roller coaster. Sometimes it's predictable, and sometimes it's not. Same thing with reactions to food. It may cause changes in your bowel habits, nausea, or even blood sugar. And then also medication timing. You may have to separate your meals to certain intervals to coordinate with your medications. So one thing to consider is if you do choose to disclose that you have cancer at your workplace, talk to your boss or talk to HR and know what your rights are. If you're not sure how to go about this, Cancer and Careers can assist you, but this is a way that you could be your own advocate to make sure that you have what you need at the workplace in order to stay healthy. So now planning for healthy eating. The first thing is you want to get organized. You want to know what it is that you need, what types of meals you're looking for. Make lists, shopping lists, meal lists, recipe lists. Prioritize what's important. So it may be a particular meal that is difficult for you to get in, and maybe you prioritize planning that meal ahead of everything else just to ensure that you get it in. And write it down. Just keep a running list of these things. Here are a couple of questions that are helpful to ask yourself when you're meal planning. So think about what will be your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, as well as your snacks. What do you have at home already in your pantry, your fridge, or your freezer? And what do you need to buy from the supermarket? When are you planning to eat these meals? Is there a certain hour that you have your lunch break and you need to eat at that certain time? Do you get home from work at a certain time and need to prepare a meal then, and so your dinner gets pushed back? Ask yourself these questions. And then also, where are you going to eat these meals? Will you be at home? Are you going to be at work? Or is it going to be something that's on the go that you're perhaps eating in the car, or you're going to a restaurant and picking something up quickly? And do you need some source of refrigeration or some way to warm it up, such as a microwave? Then think of meals that are easy for you to throw together. I call these go-to meals or brainless meals. So it's something that you don't really have to think about and something that you enjoy that's easy for you to prepare. So a couple of examples are making an omelet. It's very quick to put together. You don't need many ingredients. Doing something like pasta with a tomato sauce, whether that includes some quick proteins that you may have in your pantry, such as canned beans, or some frozen proteins that you can throw in there, or chicken with stir-fry veggies. So start keeping a list of what your no-brainer meals are, and that's a good base to get started. Then it's also helpful to keep a library of recipes of things that you enjoy. So one place that I love to look for recipes is Pinterest. Now, it can get very overwhelming because there's many options for many different types of diets. So if you want to refine your selection, you can look for certain cookbooks. So Cook for Your Life is directed towards people who have had cancer or going through treatment or are about to start treatment. And there's some great recipes in this cookbook, as well as the Cancer Fighting Kitchen. So both of these are really good resources that you can pull from for your recipes. Now for snacking. Snack food gets this reputation that it's junk food. You think of chips, you think of cookies, you think of convenience foods. But snack food does not have to equal junk food. It purely can be food that's in a smaller portion than a meal. The things that I think are very important to keep in mind is just pairing carbohydrates with protein, because this will give you the proper amount of fuel that will keep your blood sugars regulated so that you don't feel like you're crashing quickly after you're having your snack, and that it'll keep you satisfied enough to get to your next meal or your next eating occasion. And you want to pay attention to both added sugar and added salt. Even substituting 1 to 2 meals or snacks with meal replacements has been shown to be a successful weight loss and weight maintenance strategy. So something like having a Kind bar, which is, already pre-portioned for you, or if you portion control something such as a bowl of cereal, that could be a meal replacement as well. So when you're looking at the labels, particularly for snack foods, since they do tend to be in boxes and bags and things like that, a couple of things will help you guide your choices. So first off, anything that's more than 300 calories, you would want to start thinking of as a meal. Especially if it's that one single item and you're going to be adding side dishes to it or, an entree to it. For sodium, you want to keep it below 270 milligrams. And then for sugar, a good guide is to keep below 10 grams of sugar. Now, what are some good sources of snacks? So again, pair carbohydrates with protein. So good carbohydrates could be fruit. They could be crackers, bread, different types of vegetables, yogurt, or cereal. And then those could be paired with any of the following proteins: nuts or seeds, nut or seed butters like peanut butter or almond butter, cheese, hard-boiled eggs, sliced turkey or chicken, and something like hummus or even edamame. Now, of course, there's more options for protein. If you like having, little homemade pieces of turkey meatballs and you keep it in a small portion, that could be a great protein that you can pair with any of the carbohydrates. So there's definitely more flexibility than what you see on the screen. Now, for going to the supermarket, here's a couple of things to keep in mind. You want to shop the perimeter. So on the outsides of supermarkets tends to be the more fresh items. So you'll find produce, you'll find your proteins, whether it's fish or meat or poultry. You'll find dairy, and those are the things that you want to make the mainstay of your diet. Stock up on the produce, and then when you go into the insides of the supermarket, you want to make sure that you're choosing good grains. When you're going for canned goods, you want to look for things that are low in sodium. And then for proteins, looking for the lean proteins as Holly described earlier. So think of it like this. As you go through, these are the items that you would see on the outside, and then the items that you may find in the inside of the supermarket. And this can help you guide your grocery list. So if you want to save time, you can organize it kind of in the fashion that you would walk through your supermarket and then how you would walk through the rest of the supermarket and exit. All right. Now, it is important to keep in mind how much money you have to spend on your food. So create a food budget. That's very personal. It depends on your own preferences. It depends on what is important to you and what you like to spend your money on. But know a ballpark number of what you typically spend and what you'd like to spend on your food. And then to save money, you can use the grocery store circulars. So those are the little pamphlets that come out each week that advertise the foods at the supermarket. And usually you will never find coupons for fresh things like produce and meat and fish. So the circulars are great because that's where you will find the discounts on those items. And you can create your meal plan around what's on sale. So a couple apps that I like are, one, just using your own grocery store app, such as a Stop and Shop app or a Wegmans app, and it'll advertise its circulars on its own app. But there's another app called Flip, and you can search circulars from several stores in your area, not just supermarkets. It'll also include pharmacies and things like that. So it can be very helpful, especially if you have some fatigue. You can ahead of time see what's available, and then you can go out and make your grocery trip or have someone else do it for you. Use coupons for dry goods. So a good app for that is Ibotta, and when you use it, you can also get money back for scanning particular items. But it also just advertises certain coupons that are available. And then choose versatile ingredients. So rather than choosing things that can only be used once in one particular recipe, looking for more basic items such as rice or a plain pasta that you can make in multiple ways. That will help you save money. All right, so here are a couple of ideas for breakfast items. So old-fashioned oats, eggs, whole wheat waffles. You could also do regular waffles if you're sensitive to fiber, yogurt, and nut butters. For single-serving snacks, things like single-portioned cereals, you want to look for something that is not too high in sugar. Something like All Bran is quite high in fiber, so it's only appropriate for a certain population. But also fruit and nuts and tuna packets, single-serving peanut butters or almond butters, and trail mix. Now, you can also create your own trail mix by getting some nuts and dried fruit and other bits and pieces that you may like and put it all together. Refrigerated snacks that are easy to take to work include string cheese, or it could be sliced turkey breast, sliced chicken breast, hummus singles, or if you can't find hummus singles, you can get a large pack of hummus and put it in smaller containers that you pack to work. Cottage cheese and milk. Now, a couple of bars that I like are Kind bars because they're quite low in added sugars. Lara bars also has really good ingredients, but other things like New bars or Nature Valley bars, RX bars are also good ones. Now, for shakes, Holly mentioned a little bit about the Ensures and things like that, but at the supermarket, you can find other options too. So Kellogg's makes a protein shake. Stonyfield has an organic protein shake, and then there's powdered versions as well. So Carnation Breakfast Essentials, or even just non-fat dry milk powder, and that can be mixed into any one of these shakes to boost the protein and calories, or it could be added to your homemade smoothies to boost the protein and calories as well. Now, for frozen meals, these get a bad reputation because they often do have quite a bit of sodium in them and preservatives. But on the slide, you'll see a couple of examples that I think are great. So Luvo is the one that uses really good ingredients, lots of whole grains, vegetables, and not too much added sugar or added sodium. Doing plain steamed veggies that are frozen in a bag, and you can just quickly microwave them. The brand Amy's has a variety of options, not just bowls. They also have burritos and other options like that. And then Tabachnik has a nice variety of soups. And if you're sensitive to sodium, they do have a low sodium soups that you wouldn't be able to find other prepared soups with sodium as low as that. So they're definitely a great option. And there's more options coming out every day. So again, just read your nutrition facts labels. Make sure the sodium isn't above 270 milligrams, and make sure that the sugar isn't above 10 grams per serving. And it should be a good option. Now, for canned goods, again, you have to be careful with the sodium content of these. So always looking for things that are low sodium or no salt added can be helpful in navigating the aisle with the canned goods. But I love getting beans. That's a very easy and quick protein that you can put over a salad or make a soup with, or even blend it up to make your own homemade hummus. Different soups, such as Amy's soups, the Pacific box soups, or even Healthy Choice. And then also fish, sardines or tuna or salmon or even canned chicken. Now, for healthy eating with your coworkers, some ideas are to first decipher what the menu is. So look through the items and try and identify things that are steamed, broiled, baked, grilled, poached, or roasted. This will ensure that you're not getting too much added fat. Limit your intake of foods that are high in sodium, which is going to be typically found in things that are saucy, things that have cured meat or fish, cheese, pickles and olives or other fermented goods, and salted nuts and seeds. Always ask your server for more details if you don't know what you're ordering. And then check the menu for items marked as healthy. A lot of restaurants are starting to do this. Make wise choices. So take a lap before filling your plate, or if you're going to be ordering, order first so you don't feel pressured by your coworkers. Practice portion control. So think of making your plate full of vegetables, but then also portion controlling the carbohydrates and the protein. And then another idea is to just pack your food, and then it's pre-portioned for you already. So this is my plate, and it shows you the portions of your foods. Of course, every meal will be slightly different, but it's a good guide so that you know how to plan your plate. And then practice stress management. So if you need a moment, step away from your desk, take a walk, take a moment to breathe, go somewhere quiet, even if it's a bathroom stall. It can also be helpful to take a little whiff of lavender, mint, or lemon. You'd be surprised how quickly that can transport you to a place that's more relaxing. And then try different meditation apps to help cope with your stress. Try moving more. One option is getting a standing desk if it's an option at your workplace. Take the stairs. Try and take a walk at lunchtime, or even drinking more water so that you have to get up and go to the bathroom more often. Try active commuting, so whether that's getting off your bus or your train one stop earlier and walking, or trying to sneak some walking in, parking your car further away so that you have to walk a little bit further if you're able. Do some chair stretches or even marching while you're sitting. This will help to get the blood flowing and can help cope with stress, but also help to improve your mental health. Now, going on to nutrition hot topics. So I will kick it off with sugar and cancer. So there's definitely a lot of information out there that sugar may or may not fuel cancer. And what we do know is that with cancer, there is a change in insulin levels. As is the case with when you consume sugar, your insulin levels change. So yes, there may be some connection, but it may not be as direct as we see out there. Consider where you are in your treatment and recovery. Do you need to be cutting out all sources of sugar right now, or do you need those calories? Where is the sugar coming from? Is it coming from fruit? Is it coming from dairy? Because those would be healthy sources. Or is it coming from a lot of sugar-sweetened beverages? Is it coming from a lot of cakes and cookies? And maybe you want to pull back from those to help reduce the amount of sugar you're consuming. Always think of pairing your carbohydrates with protein or fat-rich foods, and this can help you maintain healthy blood sugar levels. So carbohydrates is the macronutrient that's responsible for increasing your blood sugar. Protein and fat don't really do that so much. So when you pair the carbs and protein or fat together, it actually blunts the effect of the carbohydrates and will keep your sugar levels more regulated. And then manage your anxiety about cancer. Talk to someone about it. There are some things that you can do to improve your diet, but some things may be unavoidable. And so take ownership of that and Talk to your providers about how sugar may be affecting your particular cancer and where you want to pull back. But also know that it's not a direct link, and that having a little treat here and there isn't going to affect your cancer. All right, Holly, I'll let you take the next one.
Okay, so organic foods. Often, as an oncology dietitian, Suzanne and I get the question on whether you should choose organic when going through treatment. And concern about the possible effects of food additives on health, including cancer, is one reason that people are interested in organic foods. So organic foods are often promoted as an alternative to conventionally grown fruits and vegetables. Organic foods use fewer chemicals, pesticides, hormones, antibiotics, and these compounds, they cannot be used for foods labeled as organic. So if you are choosing organic, you definitely want to choose foods that are labeled. It will usually say USDA organic. Whether organic foods carry a lower risk of cancer because they are less likely to be contaminated by some of these compounds, it remains unknown. There are several studies that have looked at the nutrient content of organic versus conventionally grown fruits and vegetables. Some studies suggest the higher nutrient content, others suggest no difference. So it is not known whether the nutritional differences that have been reported result in health benefits such as a reduced cancer risk. So with that being said, we're still in a bit of a gray area. It is important that you still consume adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables regardless of whether they are grown conventionally or organically. For folks out there who have already made the choice to choose organic, we want you to be savvy shoppers and to make a good choice because organic foods are typically more expensive. So there's a group out there called the Environmental Working Group, and yearly they produce a list that is referred to as the Dirty Dozen. And the Dirty Dozen is a resource guide designed to help you reduce your pesticide exposures. It actually lists how to buy your produce in terms of how much pesticide exposure the produce has had. So it's updated yearly. The Dirty Dozen list this year. Some of the things on there include strawberries, spinach made the list this year, apples. So on the Dirty Dozen list, if you look at this, you can see, okay, these fruits and vegetables have had the highest amount of pesticide exposure. If I'm trying to choose organic and I'm looking to spend my dollar somewhere, maybe I'll use it on these fruits and vegetables. In addition to the Dirty Dozen list, they've also come up with a Clean 15 list for 2019. So these are fruits and vegetables that are low in pesticide exposure. So, maybe this is where you can purchase conventional. So some of the things on this list include avocados, papaya made this list, kiwi, cauliflower. So I think it is a really great resource, and you can find both lists on the Environmental Working Group website. One thing I like to always encourage with my patients, especially if you've gone through something like a transplant or you've been neutropenic during your treatment and you have to be really conscious about food safety, please make sure that you wash all of your produce very well. It doesn't matter if it's organic or conventional. That apple that you just purchased has to be washed well before consumption, whether, again, it was organic or conventional. Just practice really good washing before consumption in terms of produce. In addition to the question about organic foods, we often get questioned about following vegetarian diets or vegan diets. So once, patients are diagnosed, they're often looking for, ways to change diet, ways to get healthy, and I hear many times, should I switch to a vegetarian diet? And vegetarian diets offer a lot of health benefits. They tend to be lower in saturated fat, higher in fiber, vitamins, phytochemicals. But at present, per the research, it doesn't show that following vegetarian or vegan diets are any more protective against cancer, any more protective than a plant-based diet. So a plant-based diet, per the American Institute for Cancer Research, recommends that fill your plate with 2/3 or more plant foods. So that would be your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains. So 2/3 or more of the plate, focus on that. And then 1/3 of the plate is where you can fit in a lean animal protein like a piece of fish or poultry. So as you see, the animal protein is on the plate, but it's not the star of the plate, and it's definitely a leaner protein. In addition to focusing mostly on plant foods, the American Institute for Cancer Research also recommends to limit intake of red meat like beef, pork, and lamb to no more than 18 ounces or less of cooked meat over the week. By avoiding red meat and processed meats like sausage and bacon, that is helpful overall in terms of cancer prevention and recurrence. So we do find that high amounts of red meat intake has been linked to colorectal cancer, and even small amounts of processed meats eaten regularly has been increased to higher risk of both colorectal and stomach cancer. So you do want to focus on that plant-based diet, as I mentioned, but it doesn't necessarily have to be vegetarian or vegan. So for those of you who are following, let's say, a vegan diet, so for a vegan, you may avoid milk, you may avoid eggs. One thing you may benefit from is a supplement with vitamin B12, zinc, or iron. Definitely talk to your doctors or dietitians about that. Also, be mindful of calcium, because often vegan diets can be, they can have lower calcium intake in their diet and be at higher risk for bone fracture. So you want to make sure you meet with a dietitian if you have access to one, and if you're following a vegan diet or vegetarian diet, make sure that diet is balanced, that you're getting these vitamin and mineral needs met, and that you're including good sources of vegetarian protein like lentils, beans, seeds, quinoa, nuts, and nut butter. And you can definitely maintain a well-balanced diet, but you just may need a little bit of help from a healthcare practitioner like a dietitian. So the overall message is, whether you're following vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based, we definitely want to make sure the diet is balanced and you're getting all of your nutrient needs met. And lastly, I'll hand it back to Suzanne, who will sum up our key points from today.
Okay, so in summary, try and make a healthy eating grocery list. Plan and balance your meals and snacks. So for some of you, that may mean only doing 3 meals a day, if that feels good. And for some of you, that may mean incorporating some snacks. Practice portion control. So thinking of that plate and making 2/3 of your plate plant-based, and still leaving some room for some lean proteins. Try to move more, whether that means just starting to march in your chair or trying to add in some active commuting. And work on your stress and stress coping mechanisms. That will help with overall health as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, both of you. Your knowledge and so much useful information has been shared with us today, and we all really appreciate it. Before we head into the Q&A, I just want to point out that we do run a number of free events, both in person and online throughout the year. Our 2020 Balancing Work and Cancer schedule will be released next week, and registration will be opening soon. And I do want to point out that 2 of our conferences are scheduled for 2020, and we hope you can join us for at least one. Please note that there are travel scholarships available for both. Check out cancerandcareers.org for more information. Now it's time to open up the call for questions. Kat will explain how Q&A works. Kat?
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, you may press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If your question has been answered, you can remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's star 1 to ask a question on the phone, or you may type in the Q&A in the left-hand corner of your screen.
Do you have anyone on the phone, Kat?
Not as of yet.
Okay, we do have a question here. Catherine asks, if a patient is lactose intolerant, what types of nutritional supplements would you recommend for them?
I'll take this. This is Holly. Hi. So if there's a lactose intolerance, I typically focus on diet first, so talking about some foods out there that are free of lactose that she can incorporate. There are brands like Lactaid that make Lactaid milk, and then we also have Lactaid cottage cheese, even Lactaid ice cream, just talking about food options. In terms of supplements, there are enzymes that patients do take, but I usually would recommend that the patient talk to the nursing staff or physician to decide which supplement is best for them if they're undergoing treatment.
There's also, I'll add to this, you can find plant-based protein drinks if you're wanting to do more of like a ready-to-drink option or even a powdered protein. You can look at the pea proteins as an option. And then there's also a brand called Orgain that makes a whole vegan line of ready-to-drink protein shakes.
Oh, that's great to know, especially for the vegetarians and vegans out there. We do have another question from Grace. Grace says, I have a hard time drinking enough water throughout the day, particularly when I'm at work. Do you have any suggestions to make this easier and how to best stay hydrated?
So earlier, earlier in the presentation I had some tips for hydration. So if it's really hard to drink water, I would find other fluids that are desirable right now. So that may even be, maybe 100% cranberry juice diluted with water, or as I mentioned earlier, using fresh fruits or even herbs to infuse within the water so that it's a little bit more desirable. And sipping may be easier than trying to gulp a full 8-ounce glass of fluid. So maybe just sipping on fluid throughout the day, keeping it in front of you as a reminder to sip, and then including foods that have high water content like watermelon, including those, also things like broth that adds towards hydration status. So if you could actually include that. Ices are actually hydration as well. So it's the overall food and fluids, not just water, that can help with your hydration if you're really struggling with just drinking water alone.
Yeah, and sometimes I find that especially employees have a hard time just remembering to drink because they get so busy in the day-to-day activities. So even setting a reminder, like maybe doing it every 2 hours, and making sure that you're having a good amount of fluids with your meal, whether that's after the meal if you're working with your appetite, or it could even be throughout the meal and before the meal. But sometimes those reminders are just enough to jog your memory a little bit that you need to drink something. So trying to set some reminders can be really helpful.
Absolutely, and I know that some of those Fitbits and smartwatches and things like that can be helpful in terms of those reminders as well. Kat, is there anyone else on the phone?
We do. We have a question from Heather. Heather, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Yes, my question has to do with potluck, lunches, dinners, and I'm very hesitant to eat foods that don't come from, or foods that people bring from home, that they make at home, as opposed to seeing something that was store-bought. Is this a rational fear, or how can I better manage that?
I think it is a rational fear if you're going through any kind of treatment, and at any point if you've been through some immunosuppression from treatment, that's definitely a rational fear because it's someone else preparing the food from an outside source. So if you actually have been through a period where your immunosuppression was low, if you're going through treatment, I often encourage to avoid maybe the potluck dish, unless it's at someone's home that you know. If it's someone's home who you can have a conversation with about, you've been through treatment and you've gone through some immunosuppression and they can adhere to some good food safety guidelines, that's a more comfortable situation. But if it's a larger potluck that you're not sure about all of the participants or how the food was prepared or how long it's been sitting out, I think it is rational to maybe avoid some of the choices. If it's a packaged good, if it's a dish that you brought or a close friend brought that you're comfortable with, I would make the choice. That's the way I would make the choice. Again, packaged, you brought the dish, a friend brought the dish. But if you're unsure, I think it's fair to say it's okay to avoid, especially again if you've been immunosuppressed.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more question. This one comes from Soraya. What do you think about tofu and the soy content for women due to hormones?
Yeah, so the latest research shows that a moderate intake of whole soy foods is absolutely safe when it comes to cancer. So in the past, there was some research out there that thought that maybe it could promote cancer, especially breast cancer. But newer research shows that moderate intakes of, again, whole soy foods, so that would be things like tofu, edamame, soy milk, as opposed to processed forms of soy. So soy protein isolate and things like that you see more in processed foods, it's absolutely safe to consume. Now, what is a moderate intake? I would say a standard serving of tofu would be about 3 to 4 ounces, and you do that 2 to 3 times a week. That would be moderate.
Great to hear about that new research as well. I know that there's always been some confusion around that. So it looks like we're just about 5 minutes after the hour, so I really appreciate everyone who stuck around. I think we're gonna end it here just for time's sake. I hope everyone found this webinar valuable, and we do really appreciate your feedback. So again, just reminding you all of the online evaluation form that we'll be sending out tomorrow by 5 p.m. Your feedback is really not only very helpful in shaping future calls, but also in continuing for us to receive the funding for these kinds of programs. Again, if we were unable to get to you during this call, if you have a question, please feel free to email us your question at cancerandcareers@cew.org, and we'll be sure to get the answers for you. Once again, CEU requirements are listed on this slide right now. And again, I just really want to thank Holly and Suzanne for your insights, and thank you all for attending today. Have a great day and a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference. We thank you for your participation. You may disconnect your lines at this time and have a wonderful day.